Marcus Hale stood in the center of the Serafel royal court, feeling the cold shine of the crystal floor beneath his boots. The throne room of Queen Vyloria was one of the most famous places in the entire Dominion. Its walls were made of tall, transparent pillars that glowed with soft blue light. The air smelled faintly of metal and some kind of perfume he could not name. Everything was elegant, ancient, and carefully designed to make visitors feel small. Marcus had seen large alien courts before, but the Serafel were different. They treated silence like a weapon. Every noble in the room watched him, but none spoke. Their tall, feather-crowned forms stood perfectly still, as if carved from statues. Their eyes, bright silver, followed his every movement. Humans were rare here, almost never seen this deep inside Dominion space. So a human envoy walking in alone was enough to turn the entire court into a whispering storm. Queen Vyloria sat on her crystalline throne, her robes long and shimmering like starlight. She was older than most civilizations Marcus had studied, and her presence alone carried a weight he could not deny. Yet she looked at him not with anger or suspicion, but with a calm curiosity. To her, this situation was strange. A human, unarmed, without guards, standing in her court as if nothing could harm him. She finally broke the silence. Her voice echoed through the hall like a gentle chord. "You traveled through 3 sectors of dangerous territory, human," she said. "You arrived without escort, without warship, without advisor. Even the smallest Serafel diplomats carry 2 guardians. So I must ask." She leaned forward slightly. "Who protects you?" The nobles leaned in, eager to hear the answer. Marcus could feel the weight of hundreds of eyes pressing on him, but he did not panic. He had expected this question ever since the invitation arrived. Humans did not carry the same reputation here that they had gained in the frontier. The Dominion saw them as young, unpredictable, and sometimes strange, but not dangerous. Not impressive. Not worth fearing or admiring. Marcus breathed out slowly and gave a small smile. "My people." The room stirred. Quiet voices spread like ripples on water. The Queen's expression did not change, but Marcus could see confusion in the tightening of her jaw. She expected a fleet name, a military alliance, or the name of some protective AI system. That was how most species survived here. They held on to their power, or someone else's. "Your people?" the Queen repeated. Her voice held no mockery, only genuine confusion. "You speak as if that is enough. As if your people are always beside you." Marcus lifted his chin slightly. "They are," he said simply. "Even when I'm far away." A noble to the Queen's right stepped forward, unable to stay silent. "Human," he said. "Your species is small, scattered, and unpredictable. How can your people protect you across light years?" Marcus understood the question. The Serafel valued order, structure, and hierarchy. Their citizens relied on their queen and their systems. They could not imagine any other way. So he chose a calm, gentle tone. "Because humans don't protect each other through orders or ranks," he said. "We protect each other because it is who we are." This statement puzzled them even more. The nobles looked at one another. The Queen studied him carefully, searching for deception or bravado. She found neither. He continued, knowing that the court needed more clarity. "Every human knows what it feels like to struggle, to be afraid, to face something bigger than them. So when one of us stands alone, the rest stand with them, whether they're near or far. Not because they're commanded to, not because they must, but because we care." The hall fell silent again. His words did not echo. They simply settled, like dust drifting onto a polished floor. The Queen shifted in her throne. "This concept," she said softly, "is unfamiliar to us. You speak not of soldiers or shields, but of emotion, of loyalty that exists without structure." Marcus nodded. "Yes." The nobles whispered again, but this time with something different: uncertainty. They were trying to understand something they had never experienced. The Seraphel were a beautiful species, brilliant and old, but they had grown distant from simple things, from instinct, from heart. Their society ran on rules and traditions so old that even they had forgotten why some existed. Queen Vyloria raised one hand to silence her court. Her silver eyes studied Marcus with deeper focus. "I sense you are not exaggerating," she said, "nor offering poetry to flatter us. You believe this." Marcus smiled slightly. "I don't need to believe it. I've lived it my whole life." The queen tilted her head. Her feathers shimmered with a faint gold tint, a sign of curiosity. "Then tell us," she said gently, "why would your people care so deeply for one who walks alone into a foreign court?" "Because I'm not alone," Marcus replied. "Every human I've met, every friend I've made, every stranger who helped me once, they're all part of my path. Everything I am comes from them. Even if they aren't here, they shaped me. And if I ever needed them, truly needed them, humans always answer." The court grew quiet again. Even the mechanical ventilation systems seemed to hush, as if listening. One of the queen's advisors finally spoke. "Your species is unusual," he said. "You speak of community without borders, of unity without command." Marcus gave a gentle shrug. "We're far from perfect. We argue. We struggle. We make mistakes. But when someone is in danger or needs help, humans don't ask who they are. We ask what we can do." The queen tapped her fingers lightly against the arm of her throne. Her expression remained unreadable, but Marcus sensed she was weighing his words carefully. "Perhaps humans are more complex than our records suggest," she admitted. "Your presence here may reveal more than diplomacy alone." Marcus bowed slightly. "I'm here to talk, not to impress. But I want you to understand why I came without guards. It's not confidence. It's trust. I trust my people. I trust myself. And I trust that this court wants peace, not conflict." A soft ripple moved through the nobles. His honesty disarmed them more than any show of strength could have. Queen Vyloria finally spoke again, her tone thoughtful. "Very well, Marcus Hale. I accept your answer for now. But understand this. Your words have stirred questions in this court. Questions we have not asked in many centuries." Marcus smiled. "Good. Questions are where understanding begins." The queen did not smile back, but her eyes softened a little. "We shall see," she said. And as Marcus stood alone beneath the glowing pillars of the Seraphel throne room, he did not feel small. He felt the strength of every person who had ever stood beside him, near or far, past or present. He felt human. The Seraphel dominion moved with slow grace, but its mind worked very fast. The moment Marcus Hale left the royal court, whispers began spreading across the palace like invisible insects. Nobles gathered in corners, advisors exchanged soft murmurs, and even servants paused to wonder. A simple human answer had shaken a civilization that believed it understood every species in known space. Marcus walked through the long crystal halls with calm steps. He did not need a map. A young Seraphel attendant guided him, though she kept a polite distance. She seemed nervous, not because she feared him, but because she had never met a human before. Marcus noticed her stiff wings and quickly blinking silver eyes. "You do not need to worry," he said in a friendly tone. "I do not bite." The attendant looked startled, unsure if that was a human joke or a serious warning. I understand. Envoy Marcus." He smiled gently, trying to make her more comfortable. "Just call me Marcus." She hesitated, then nodded. They continued walking until they reached the guest quarters, a quiet part of the palace filled with soft light and floating platforms. Marcus thanked the attendant and she bowed before hurrying away, almost tripping over her long robe. He watched her go, amused by how strange humans must seem to this world. When the door closed behind him, he finally released a breath he had been holding. The palace was beautiful, but it also felt like a cage made of glass and old traditions. Marcus sat on the smooth stone bench by the window and looked at the vast city outside. Towers rose like glowing branches, and skylights moved across the air with smooth lines. Everything was calm. Everything was controlled. Everything was old. Marcus wondered if his words had been too simple for a species that built their lives on rules and order. But he had spoken the truth, and sometimes the truth was simple. As he rested, the Serafel court gathered in the Hall of Records. It was a huge, circular space, filled with floating screens and ancient tablets kept under glass. Queen Valoria stood at the center, while her advisors formed a ring around her. They had assembled to study humanity, something they had not done deeply in many years. One of the historians activated a screen showing different reports collected from frontier worlds. "We have underestimated the humans," she said softly. "There are patterns we ignored, situations that did not fit our models." Another advisor, older and stern, folded his arms. "Humans are unpredictable. Their actions often conflict with their own logic. How can we trust records based on instinct instead of structure?" The historian shook her head. "Instinct is their structure, or at least part of it." Queen Valoria listened without speaking. Her silver eyes reflected the glowing reports in front of her. The historian continued. "Here is one example. A human medic alone entered a quarantine zone during a bioweapon outbreak on a frontier moon. The locals had evacuated. The air was full of toxic spores. The medic carried only basic gear, yet she saved a child from another species. She carried him on foot for 6 kilometers through danger. The stern advisor raised an eyebrow. "That is foolish risk." "It succeeded," the historian replied. "And incidents like this repeat across many frontier worlds." Another screen activated, showing a damaged mining station. A human engineer crawled through debris to manually restart life support for a mix of alien workers trapped inside. No orders. No reward. Just action. A third screen showed a human cargo crew rescuing an alien vessel caught in a solar storm. No connection between them. No political gain. Simply help offered because it was needed. These were the stories Marcus had spoken about. Stories the Dominion had labeled as irregular. Probabilities too small to matter. But now, the Queen saw they were something else. "These humans," she said softly, "they act because they feel, not because they must." The court grew silent. The Serafel were a logical people. Emotions existed in their society, but they did not drive it. They shaped their world with tradition and calculation. So, this concept that entire groups of humans acted from empathy and instinct felt both strange and uncomfortable. The stern advisor finally asked, "Your Majesty, is this why the envoy said his people protect him? Because he believes their actions come from emotion, not command?" The Queen nodded. "Yes, and perhaps he is correct." Meanwhile, Marcus sat in his room unaware that he had caused a storm of curiosity. He thought about his conversation with the Queen. He wondered if she believed him or simply played along out of diplomacy. Humans were still newcomers to the galactic stage. Their territory was small, their history short, yet their influence on the outer worlds had grown quickly through small acts, not big empires. He looked at a small device he carried, a communicator. He turned it on, and a recorded message appeared. It was from his sister, sent before he began this journey. She smiled on the screen. Tired but warm. She worked on a frontier world hospital, treating alien settlers and humans alike. In the message, she told him to take care of himself and to remember he was never alone. He smiled softly. Messages like these carried more strength than any weapon. He turned the communicator off and leaned back. He did not know that. Just outside his room, a group of Serafel scholars were already gathering more information about humanity, reviewing years of ignored reports, trying to make sense of a species that did not behave like a typical empire. As night settled over the Serafel capital, Queen Valoria remained awake in her private chamber, reading through report after report. She paused at one particular document. It was from a small colony far beyond Dominion borders. The colony leaders had written one simple sentence. When disaster came, the humans arrived before anyone else, even though we were strangers. The Queen closed the file and sat quietly for a long time. She felt something she had not felt in centuries: uncertainty, mixed with curiosity. Humanity, it seemed, carried a kind of strength she had forgotten existed. Not power of weapons or armies, but the power of ordinary people acting with courage. She remembered her question to Marcus. Who protects you? And his answer echoed in her mind. My people. She could not understand it fully yet, but she felt she needed to know more. Far away in his room, Marcus looked out at the glowing city and did not know that the Serafel were beginning to rewrite everything they thought they knew about humans. He had come alone, but his presence was already changing, a civilization that had never expected to learn anything new from a young species. In the quiet night, Marcus whispered to himself, I hope they see us clearly. And deep in the palace, the Queen was thinking the same thing. The next morning began quietly. But the quiet did not last. Something strange was happening on the edge of Serafel territory, and the news traveled toward the palace with growing urgency. Marcus woke early, long before the palace lights brightened, and sat near the window watching the city slowly come alive. He felt a strange tension in the air, like the calm before a storm. He did not know why, but his instincts told him something was wrong. At the same time, in another part of the palace, Queen Valoria listened to her chief science advisor with deepening concern. A holographic map projected swirling lines of distorted space. The advisor's wings trembled slightly, a sign of fear among the Serafel. We do not fully understand the anomaly, he said carefully. But it is growing. 3 outposts have already been lost. Lost? The Queen repeated, her voice sharp. I want clear details. There were no explosions or attacks, the advisor said. The stations were simply pulled apart. Space around them twisted and collapsed. The gravitational readings are beyond our models. Another advisor stepped forward with a grim face. We tried to send drones. They lasted 6 seconds before vanishing. The Queen felt a cold worry settle in her chest. The Dominion had faced enemies, disasters, and wars over thousands of years. But this was different. This was something they did not understand. Something that ignored their systems and their traditions. She straightened her posture. Summon the High Command, and send a message to the human envoy. He must join us at once. Marcus received the summons while finishing a simple breakfast of nutrient blocks, far less tasty than real food, but enough to keep him going. The attendant who brought the message looked rushed and anxious. Is everything all right? Marcus asked. I do not know, she admitted. The Queen requests your presence in the council chamber. Immediately. Marcus nodded, sensing the seriousness. Lead the way. As they walked, Marcus noticed the palace had shifted into a different rhythm. Guards who normally moved with calm elegance now stood stiff and alert. Officials hurried through corridors. Lights flickered slightly as systems were redirected to communications and analysis stations. Something big was happening. The council chamber was already filled when Marcus arrived. Holographic screens floated above a long table, showing distorted images of spinning space and collapsing structures. The Queen stood at the head of the room, her wings raised slightly, a sign of tension. Thank you for coming quickly, she said as Marcus approached. Of course, he replied. What's happening? One of the generals turned the largest screen toward him. It showed a swirling rift of glowing light, like a wound in space. At the edges, Fragments of metal and drifting debris spun helplessly. "This appeared 40 hours ago," the general said. "At first we believed it was a natural spatial storm. But it is expanding, and everything that touches it breaks apart." Marcus frowned. "Do you know what caused it?" "No," the Queen answered quietly. "And our scientists cannot predict how large it will grow." Marcus studied the image closely. He had seen similar distortions in frontier regions, but never this powerful. "What about evacuations?" "We are trying," the Queen said. "But communication signals near the anomaly are unstable. Ships are struggling to get close enough." Marcus took a slow breath. "This is serious." The Queen nodded. "That is why I asked for you. Your people have experience dealing with strange phenomena. Your frontier worlds face unpredictable dangers. Often." Marcus appreciated her honesty. She was not hiding her fear or her need for help. That alone said a lot about her. He asked, "What do you know about the energy patterns?" The science advisor brought up graphs and data streams. "It behaves like a gravitational tear, but not exactly. The readings shift too fast. It is almost alive." Marcus tilted his head. "Living energy?" The advisor hesitated. "Not in a biological sense. But it reacts. It changes faster when we observe it. When we try to scan deeper, it becomes unstable." Marcus felt a chill. "I've heard of something like this. A spatial cascade reaction. Humans encountered one near the Eridan frontier 2 decades ago." "One." The room fell silent. Even the humming screens seemed to pause. "Your people survived such an event?" the general asked, disbelief in his voice. "Barely," Marcus admitted. "But yes. And our fleets learned how to stabilize the reaction long enough to evacuate nearby systems." The Queen leaned forward. "Then we must contact your people immediately." Marcus reached for his communicator. "Already ahead of you." He quickly sent a coded message, short and urgent. Humans were not the fastest species, nor the strongest, but they were one of the most responsive. Whenever trouble appeared, humans arrived quickly, sometimes too quickly, according to other species. Marcus hoped this time they would be quick enough. As he finished transmitting the message, alarms suddenly echoed through the chamber. Red lights pulsed across the walls. The Queen's expression tightened. "What now?" she demanded. A guard rushed forward. "Your Majesty, the anomaly has expanded again. It consumed Sentinel Outpost 9. Gasps filled the room. That outpost was heavily shielded, built to resist cosmic storms. Marcus felt a growing worry. "How far is it from your populated worlds?" he asked. "Too close," the Queen answered. "If this continues, millions are at risk." Marcus looked at the data again. The rift's growth was accelerating. Their science teams were good, but they lacked hands-on experience with unpredictable phenomena like this. Humans had experience because they lived on the edge, literally and figuratively. He said softly, "Help is coming, but until then, we need to slow the expansion." The Queen studied him. "Do you have a suggestion?" "Several," Marcus replied. "But we need teams, engineers, pilots, technicians, and we need to approach with caution." The Queen nodded immediately. "You will have whatever you request." Marcus admired her decisiveness. She was afraid, but she acted quickly and wisely. Many rulers would deny, or hesitate, or hide behind pride. She did not. The science advisor quickly gathered a group of Serafel experts. Marcus explained stabilizing techniques humans once used, demonstrating them on the holographic model. The Serafel listened carefully, surprised at how simple some human methods were. Simple, but effective. "We must hold it long enough for rescue teams to arrive," Marcus said. "Every hour counts." The Queen understood. "Then that is what we will do." As Marcus prepared to leave the chamber and join the engineering teams, a message suddenly appeared on his communicator. A single line. A familiar code. He froze for a moment. The Queen noticed his expression. Is something wrong? Marcus slowly shook his head, then smiled. Not wrong, he said quietly. The Queen blinked. Already? But you only sent the message minutes ago. Marcus pocketed the communicator, his voice steady and warm. I told you, he said. My people protect each other. Outside, the sky shimmered as if answering his words. Something huge was coming, and the Serafel Dominion was about to learn exactly what humans did when danger threatened a stranger's world. The news that human ships were close reached the Serafel Palace faster than any transport vessel ever could. It spread from room to room in quick whispers, surprising the officials who still believed humans were slow compared to ancient empires. But Marcus had been confident, and now the Queen began to understand why. Outside the capital, the sky changed color as emergency shields shifted power. Every sensor in the Dominion turned toward the edge of their territory, where the anomaly continued to grow like a hungry wound. It pulsed with strange light, swallowing drifting debris and tearing space into twisted ribbons. Serafel fleets tried to hold the line, but their formations wavered each hour. Marcus stood with the engineering teams on a launch platform as supply ships prepared for takeoff. The Serafel engineers looked nervous, but determined. Their wings twitched with stress. Their eyes darted toward the sky every few seconds. Marcus moved among them with a calm presence, checking equipment and reinforcing plans. We will use gravity anchors first, Marcus explained. They're not strong enough to stop the anomaly, but they might slow it. A young Serafel engineer asked, Will it be safe? Marcus was honest. We don't know, but it will be safer if we work together. The engineer nodded slowly. The Serafel lived with rules and certainty. Working with unknown danger made them uncomfortable. But Marcus spoke with steady confidence, which gave them something to hold on to. Moments later, the Queen arrived at the platform with her personal guard. Her presence brought a hush over the teams. She wore a thinner royal robe, designed for field operations, though she would not be joining them. Her silver eyes focused on Marcus. We have received your people's message, she said. They will reach our border within the hour. Marcus felt a small warmth in his chest. Good. They'll bring more experience, more tools, and more brave hands. The Queen studied him quietly. I begin to understand your words, Marcus Hale. Your people truly move for each other. He smiled softly. Before she could answer, the entire platform shook. A loud alarm echoed across the city. Technicians rushed to screens. Marcus turned toward the horizon and saw a bright flash of collapsing space. One of the generals approached quickly. Your Majesty. The anomaly surged again. It has accelerated toward the trade route. The Queen's face grew pale. That route connects to 5 colonies. Marcus stepped forward. We need to move now. The Queen nodded, and the teams hurried onto the transport ships. Marcus boarded the lead vessel, securing himself as the engines powered up. Through the window he saw the Queen watching. Her wings folded tightly in worry. He gave her a reassuring nod before the ship lifted into the sky. The journey toward the anomaly felt longer than it was. The space around them grew darker and more unstable. The stars stretched and blurred, as if the universe itself was being bent by invisible hands. Marcus guided the engineers with calm instructions. Stay focused, he said. The anomaly reacts to movement, so we make ours slow and steady. The Serafel engineers followed closely, trusting his experience. Their equipment floated around them in ordered formation as the ships moved deeper into the danger zone. When they arrived, the sight took everyone's breath away. The anomaly was larger than any earlier image had shown. It looked like a swirling whirlpool made of broken light, stretching and folding space into impossible shapes. It pulsed with a deep, low sound that felt more like pressure than noise. A Seraphel captain whispered, "How can something like this exist?" Marcus stared at the swirling chaos. "Sometimes the universe surprises us." The Seraphel ships formed a defensive circle. Marcus and the engineers prepared the gravity anchors, attaching them to drones that would place the devices at key positions. "Remember," Marcus said, "we're not trying to win here. We're trying to slow it down." But the anomaly was unpredictable. As the drones moved, a sudden pulse shot outward. One drone was pulled off course, its systems flickering. "Stabilize it," Marcus ordered. A Seraphel operator tried, but her hands shook. Marcus quickly placed his hand over hers, guiding her movements. Together, they corrected the drone's path. The Seraphel team watched in awe. "You weren't trained on our systems," she whispered. "I don't need to be," Marcus replied. "Machines are only tools. People make them work." The drone reached its position and activated the anchor. A beam of stabilizing force shot into the swirling space. The anomaly slowed slightly, just a tiny change, but enough to show their efforts mattered. They deployed more anchors. Each one reduced the anomaly's speed by a fraction. It was still growing, but no longer racing. Suddenly, a bright flash appeared behind them. Everyone turned sharply. A human ship emerged from hyperspace patches on its hull, mismatched engines, lights flickering. It was not elegant, like the Seraphel vessels. It looked like it had survived 1,000 storms and still had enough courage for 1,000 more. And it was not alone. More human ships followed, forming a fleet of varied shapes and sizes. The Seraphel stared in silence. They had expected a small diplomatic escort, maybe a research vessel. Instead, volunteers from many human colonies had arrived: engineers, medics, rescue crews, civilian ships retrofitted for emergencies. Marcus grinned. "Told you. When humans see trouble, they show up fast." The communication screen lit up with a familiar face. It was Captain Alina Torres from the Terran Relief Fleet. She looked tired, determined, and unmistakably human. "Marcus," she said, "you always find the interesting problems." He laughed. "Just doing my job." Alina turned serious as she looked at the anomaly. "We'll run the cascade sync. It may help control the instability." Marcus nodded. "Let's do it." The Seraphel watched with shock as human ships moved into position with practiced coordination. They did not wait for orders from a high command. They communicated quickly, adjusted plans on the spot, and improvised where needed. The Seraphel engineers saw something they had never witnessed before. A fleet built not on strict hierarchy, but on trust. Humans linked their ship cores and began releasing stabilizing pulses. The rift trembled violently, fighting back with bursts of wild energy. Some pulses missed. Some ships took damage. But the humans kept going. One Seraphel officer whispered, "They act without fear." Marcus overheard and shook his head. "No. They act with fear, and still move forward. That's what makes them strong." The combined force of human ships and Seraphel anchors slowly pushed the anomaly's expansion down. For the first time since it appeared, the rift weakened. But the effort came with danger. A sudden surge struck Marcus's ship. The lights flickered. A console exploded in sparks. Marcus braced himself. "Hold formation. Don't break now." Human and Seraphel ships fought together, pushing their limits until the surge finally slowed. The Queen watched from her palace through distant screens, her heart tight with worry. She had never seen such cooperation, never seen such courage. In the end, the anomaly remained, but it was no longer unstoppable. It had been slowed enough for a final, desperate plan. And now the Seraphel understood why Marcus could walk alone into any court. He didn't walk alone at all. His people always came. The battle against the anomaly had slowed the disaster, but everyone knew it was not over. Slowing something was not the same as stopping it. The strange tear in space continued to twist and breathe like a giant struggling creature. It fought every stabilizing pulse, resisted every anchor, and tried to break free again. Marcus stood inside the human Serafel command ship, studying the shifting hologram of the rift. His hair was dusty from smoke, and his uniform had burn marks from earlier sparks. But he looked focused, thinking hard. Around him, Serafel engineers and human technicians worked side by side, sharing tools, exchanging data, and speaking quickly through a mix of languages. The room felt like a storm of action and ideas. Captain Alina Torres leaned toward the hologram, tapping on a glowing point. "This section is the weakest," she said. "If we collapse that side, the whole structure will fold inward." A Serafel scientist shook his head. "The energy level is too unstable. If it folds wrong, everything nearby could be destroyed." Alina shrugged lightly. "So we fold it right." The Serafel looked confused by her confidence. Marcus smiled. Humans always sounded reckless to alien ears, but they almost always had a reason. He stepped closer to the hologram. "The rift is like a spinning wheel," he explained. "If we push it at the right angle, with the right timing, we can make it collapse into itself. Not explode, just collapse." The Serafel stared at him with wide silver eyes. One raised a hand slowly. "You are suggesting we use our ship cores to apply force at the exact moment the anomaly shifts?" "Yes," Marcus said. "Human ships have done it before. Not with something this large, but the method is the same." The scientist's feathers trembled. "The ships that perform this maneuver, they will not survive. Will they?" Marcus grew quiet. He exchanged a look with Alina. They both knew the truth. "No," Alina said softly. The room fell silent. Serafel advisors lowered their heads. Even the machines seemed to hum more quietly, as if the idea itself carried weight. A young Serafel engineer whispered, "No one would volunteer for such a mission." Marcus looked at him steadily. "Humans will." The engineer stared at him with disbelief. "Why? Why would anyone agree to die for people they do not even know?" Marcus took a breath. His voice was calm, but strong. "Because life matters. Because stopping this anomaly will save millions. Because humans believe helping others, even strangers, is worth sacrifice. And because no one asks them, they choose it. Underzyme. 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 Underzyme." Alina nodded. "Every ship captain in our fleet knows the risk. And still, they will do it." The Serafel looked at the humans as if seeing them for the first time. The Queen appeared on the main screen, her expression filled with tension. She had been monitoring everything from her palace. "Envoy Marcus? Captain Torres?" she said. "Is this truly the only way?" Marcus nodded. "It is the only way we know." The Queen closed her eyes briefly, as if steadying herself. When she opened them again, her voice was firm. "Then I will not let only humans make this sacrifice. Serafel pilots will join you." A Serafel general stepped forward quickly. "Your Majesty, that is too dangerous." She raised a hand. "Our people must stand beside those who stand for us." Prop. Our people must stand beside those who stand for us. Today. Marcus felt respect rise inside him. The Queen had changed. She was no longer observing humanity like a distant scholar. She was learning from them. Alina stepped forward. "Your Majesty, thank you. But our ships are designed for this move. Serafel systems may not hold." The Queen's voice softened. "Then my people will assist in other ways. We will support your ships, shield them, and give you every advantage we can. You will not face this alone. Trust. Not face this alone. Sheem. End quote. Marcus bowed his head slightly. That is enough. Thank you. Preparations began immediately. Human ships aligned around the anomaly in a wide circle. Serafel vessels positioned themselves behind them, forming a protective ring like feathers around a fragile bird. Every ship extended stabilizing fields, creating a thin net of energy across the unstable space. Marcus boarded one of the support ships. Alina would lead the collapsing maneuver from her vessel. He watched her image on the screen. Ready? She asked. As ready as we can be, Marcus replied. Good. And Marcus, if this works, I'll see you on the other side. He smiled faintly. I'll be waiting. The countdown started. Tension filled the air. Even the stars looked still. 10 seconds, the Serafel announcer said. Inside the collapsing fleet, human captains looked calm, their hands steady on their controls. They had accepted their fate long before the countdown reached 1. They did not shout, or cry, or panic. They simply stood at their posts. 5 seconds. Serafel pilots watched them in awe. They whispered to each other about courage, about choice, about the strange strength of humans. 3 seconds. The anomaly pulsed violently, sensing the pressure building around it. 2. A Serafel engineer whispered, May the universe guide them. 1. The human ships fired their synchronized pulses. The space around them shook. Light cracked apart in bright lines. The anomaly twisted, folding inward. The human ship cores burned hot, spilling energy until their hulls glowed white. Serafel support ships pushed their stabilizing beams harder, protecting the collapsing vessels as long as they could. Alina's ship moved closest. She gave Marcus one last look through the screen. Tell my family I went smiling, she said softly. Before Marcus could answer, her ship vanished in a burst of white light as it forced the rift inward. One by one, the human ships followed, each releasing its final pulse, each folding another piece of the anomaly into nothing. The Serafel ships held the line, shielding them until the very last second. Then the rift closed. Space snapped back into place with a quiet shudder. The twisted lights disappeared. The air calmed. The danger was gone. For a long moment, no one spoke. Marcus stood in the silent command room, gripping the railing as grief and pride mixed inside him. He whispered, You did it. All of you. Across the Dominion, screens showed the empty space where the rift had been. Serafel citizens watched with tears in their silver eyes. They understood what had been done for them, what had been given. In the palace, the queen placed a hand over her heart. Humans, she whispered, you have shown us a strength we lost long ago. Later, at a grand gathering, the queen stood before her people with Marcus beside her. She spoke clearly, her voice echoing across the hall. When I once asked who protects him, the human envoy said only, My people. Today we learned the meaning of those words. Humanity does not stand tall because of power or wealth. They stand tall because of each other. And because they choose courage. Not because they are ordered to be brave. She turned to Marcus. Your people have become a myth in our hearts, not of fear, but of hope. And now we ask ourselves, who will we become, standing beside such people? Marcus felt humbled. He shook his head softly. We're not heroes, he said. We're just people trying to help. The queen smiled gently. Sometimes, Marcus Hale, that is what makes a hero. And in that moment, in a great crystal hall filled with two very different species, humanity was not seen as small or young or strange. They were seen as something rare, something powerful, something worth remembering. A myth made not of legends, but of people.